One of the most common questions that I get that I actually kind of refuse to answer is, Rachel, can I pick your brain? Could we have just 5 minutes to sit down and talk? However, I still wanted to serve value and answer your questions. So in this video today, I'm going to share with you my answers to your questions. Now, if you go to www.pickrachelsbrain.com, you'll see that there's a form to submit your questions and they might just be featured in the next video. So let's dive on in. And by the way, this one's fun because I take you behind the scenes as I'm redesigning my entire studio for filming. I have a huge sewing project coming up. You can probably see the boarded up windows behind me. So I'm basically creating and sewing these really cool, well, you'll see in time. Rachel, as social media marketing continues to shift, what do you consider to be the smartest leverage? That is, what one action solves 100 others. As everything continues to change in terms of what the new platforms are, where the most effective marketing is happening, the single greatest thing that you can do is to make sure that every single day you are in fact creating content. Now, content is not just social media. It means that you are writing long form copy to be used in emails or blogs, lead magnets, possibly even developing products. And then also making sure that you're creating short form content, meaning trying your hand at crafting those little quotable things. They used to be called tweets back in my day. But the truth is, it's really helpful to start to identify and test out what's working. In fact, as social media changes, whatever platform you're using can become the place where you establish your baseline. You know, okay, most of my content gets this amount of reach, this amount of comments, likes, or shares. And then from there, try to outperform yourself by testing out that short form content. There's two more types of content I do recommend that everybody create consistently, and those are short form videos and long form videos. How do I grow to 1 million followers? No, it's not showing your butt. Okay, so the thing about growing 1 million followers across the board, it takes a lot more work than people let on. In order for me to grow 1 million followers on just one platform and a combined 2 million followers plus across multiple other platforms, I had to create so much content each and every day. For example, on TikTok, even in the early days of TikTok, I was posting anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 videos per day when I saw that my growth was happening the fastest. And it's not necessarily always sustainable. Sometimes you have to take breaks depending on what's happening in life. But truth be told, if you commit yourself to creating content every single day at an extremely elevated pace and then learn from what's working and iterate from what isn't, you'll be amazed by how quickly you will grow. How do you keep your house so clean? Well, first and foremost, it's not clean everywhere. The thing is, like, okay, so I'm a self-proclaimed, and I think my husband would agree, I'm a slob. I am not a clean person by nature at all. And when I married Paul, obviously we got married really fast, and he, it turns out, is like one of the cleanest men I've ever met in my life, or even heard about. I didn't know, it's like Bigfoot. I didn't know that these clean, super clean men existed. So he's the kind of person who will like put everything away when he's done using it. He cleans his when he trims his beard, he cleans that out of the sink meticulously. It was kind of wild for me because it kind of elevated, or rather escalated, the urgency for me. I was kind of embarrassed about what a slob I was by nature. My car was always trashed. It smelled like old food. And finally, I just decided, what if I learn how to do what he's doing? Because I kind of like the way his side of the bedroom looks, and I kind of like how his car is always cleaner than mine and smells new for so much longer. And so I had to learn how to be clean, but I'm not clean in every area all the time. So for example, this is my sewing room, and you can tell other people don't use it because it gets messy in between projects, and definitely during big projects. And so I'm allowed to have contained messes. These are my rules for myself, not Paul. I'm allowed to have contained messes, but then something Paul and I do each day, sometimes even twice a day, is we will take turns kind of cleaning and just picking up as we go throughout the day. And that's been really helpful for not allowing the mess to get out of hand. If you clean once or twice a day for literally just 10 minutes, picking up the rooms you're in, you'll be amazed by how much less cleaning you have to do. And then on the weekends, I will never say which of my kids, but one of our kids is really messy, one is fairly messy, and one is meticulous, just like Paul. What's interesting is we make them fully clean their rooms all the way. You'd think we were like the worst parents ever for that, but we make them fully clean their room all the way. We ask for their help in picking up the whole house so that they can experience what picking up is like, and then maybe one day they'll connect the two, kind of like how I did later in life. And then another thing that is big is we'll ask for their help with, like, you know, doing the weekly chores like garbages and filling the toilet paper everywhere. Now, I will say one great help that I have is we hired my father-in-law to help us with laundry for the most part and dishes. Now, that doesn't mean he's always doing the laundry and dishes. Sometimes he's just doing some other tasks like taking the pets to the vet or things like that. And so that's been really helpful, especially because I cook from scratch a lot of nights every week. But if it weren't for him, Paul and I would just be spending our evenings washing dishes and folding laundry while watching our usual Netflix shows. And that's what we used to do once I learned how to be clean.
Hey Rachel, how do you weed out men just looking to hit on you? It is very disruptive and annoying.
Oh, I usually just say something disgusting, like telling a story about farts or poop. That usually works pretty well. If that doesn't work, talk about childbirth. No, seriously though, that actually really does work. Truth be told, when I sense that a guy is trying to like hit on me, I like friend zone people so fast. So if a guy is like, hey, I would love to hop on a call, and connect with you or whatever, I'm like, hey, I only have openings for clients right now. My packages start at this amount. Would you like to talk? And usually that weeds them out pretty fast, or once in a while they'll pay, and that's awesome too.
Hey Rachel, I've read your book and taken a number of courses where you tell us that we don't need to niche, and yet I have this nagging feeling that this would only work for someone with an established following. Please help me understand how it could work for a small or new account.
If you have a nagging thought that niching down is the only way that you're going to see success as a smaller account, then whatever you believe is absolutely true. Now, I will say, here's the downside to doing that from the beginning. And by the way, I did talk about social media, but I talked about all aspects of social media and email marketing and Facebook from the very beginning when I had no following. I even talked about my personal life, like my love story, and that's actually what helped me to go viral the very first time. So it's interesting because you can choose to not niche down, but it's going to make you kind of feel stuck in the corner a little bit. It becomes extremely difficult to get out of that space once you decide, I'm sick and tired of talking about this thing. But like I said, if you have a belief that that's the only way it's going to work, no matter what I tell you, you may not believe me. So I'm going to say, do what feels right, but know that it comes with an upside and a downside.
What books do you recommend for healing and forgiveness?
This book is called The Drama of the Gifted Child. Now, what's interesting is that this book is written for therapists and mental health professionals, but I got more out of that book than I could even believe, because I didn't realize how often myself and other entrepreneurs were overachieving and pleasing people through overachieving, and what it was actually revealing in our lives, which is mind-blowing. The next book that I'm going to share is Mother Hunger, and that book was fantastic on so many levels. It really helped me to understand the importance of like surrogate family at times in your life, depending on what family has looked like growing up, and how different parts of mothering, even if you didn't have a bad mom or a bad father, even if they were doing the best that they could, there are things that they may have accidentally done when they were in preservation or survival mode that you didn't realize still affect you to this day. And that book really breaks down exactly what that looks like. The next book that I'm going to share that I absolutely loved is a little bit controversial. Not everything in this book is accurate, and yet there are some parts of this book that are incredibly accurate. So do your own research, but even many of the mental health professionals that I've worked with, that I talk to on a regular basis, have told me there's a lot that is good and true in this book. And that book is called The Body Knows the Score. Now keep in mind, there's controversy about the author, as there almost always is with pretty much every book these days, I swear. But it is so fantastic for understanding exactly why it is that we do some of the things that we do, and we may not realize, oh, this is a generational trauma, or this is something that's stored in my body from when I was 3 years old and I had this terrible nightmare and then someone crashed in the house or something like that.
How do you keep yourself organized without feeling overwhelmed?
How do I keep myself organized without feeling overwhelmed? This is interesting because I have my spots of absolute mess. So as you saw from my sewing room, I'm not always organized in the way that you would think. The thing that's interesting is my slobbishness actually makes sense to me. There's still a system in my head. For example, if you ask me where to find the fabric that's from repurposed dresses, it's right there. If you ask me where the bobbins are with the thread on them, they're in the case right there. And I could tell you pretty much every single thing in this room. But that being said, organization takes time. And I wish more people talked about that. Most weekends I take on 1 or 2 organization projects, and it is a never-ending process. So, one weekend I might take on the fridge and the pantry. Well, now that's going to be nice for a while, and I can easily reposition where things go, but it's not going to stay good forever. And that's important to keep in mind. When it comes to my Google Drive, I'll have a fantastic organization going for a while, and then before you know it, myself, other people were running behind. We quickly just add a bunch of documents, and before you know it, it is not exactly the way I like to see it. So I have a system for organization consistently. I like to take everything out and re-put it all back. You can't do that in a Google Drive. So instead what I do is I create these folders called name, get your stuff and organize it, put it back where it belongs. And then on a day where we're slower, I'll be like, okay guys, please clean up your folders, put everything where it belongs, and name everything appropriately. When it comes to my house, I take everything out and then put it all back, get rid of the things that don't fit, but I touch each and every single item as I'm organizing and putting it all back, because oftentimes I'll be like, oh, gross, I didn't even know I had this much stuff. I don't need any of this. So I'm a huge believer in clearing the space and then doing that about once a week for your business as a whole, your downloads, your desktop, your folders on your desktop, your Google Drive. And for your home, it's just constantly reorganizing each space because life gets messy and so do families.
What is the simplest tool for keyword research?
Simplest tool for keyword research. I'm going to share 3. The expensive one that is my favorite is SEMrush. My second favorite, actually my first favorite and medium expensive, it's not the best, but it's what I like, is Answer the Public. And Neil Patel, if you're watching this, massive shout out to you. Feel free to tag him in the comments. I applaud him for his work with Answer the Public and what he has done to revolutionize the tool and make it more affordable to all of us. So I'm a huge fan of that move. And then the freest one, not always the best one, is going to Google, type in your a keyword that gets you started, like TikTok marketing or how to pin fabric for seams or something like that. And then what you're gonna do is go down to where it says people also ask. And from there, you expand and contract the 4 questions that already show up and pre-populate. And what's going to happen is more and more questions will show up. So you expand it with the little arrow, hit it again, it'll contract it, and the list keeps growing. And you can pull out tons of questions and topics and keywords from that. It's not the best, but it is the freest.
What do you think of sharing Instagram Reels automatically to Facebook? Have you tested the performance? and would you share? I found that posting videos, not as reels, on Facebook works better.
What do you think of sharing Instagram Reels automatically to Facebook? Have you tested the performance and would share? I found that posting videos not as Reels on Facebook works better.
When it comes to Facebook Reels, I have an interesting viewpoint and it actually aligns with yours pretty closely. I've found that Facebook Reels for me, the majority of the time, don't perform as well as Facebook videos. I still do a little of both. But I have not found that to be the case for many of my clients. Their Facebook Reels are crushing it. So I'm a big fan of testing a couple of different things. Posting from one to the next and automating that process and seeing how that goes for a little while, maybe a week or two. Also doing the test of using a scheduler for your Facebook Reels. And then also testing out what happens when you share them as videos for a week or two.
How to write content that converts but doesn't burn me out.
Now, the original person asking this question, I remember this question. They said that they were working full time, so they were basically burning the candle at both ends. And there's a few different answers to this. So my thought process is always, this is going to be hard no matter what. So I would rather get through it as quickly as possible. I want to replace my 9 to 5. I want to, get all that time back. And that's what I did when I was working full time in my 9 to 5. Now, there's something else that happens that is very interestingly cool, is over time, you start to develop banks of content if you go back and analyze the content you've created and how it performs. I like to take the top performers, put them into a bank and use them again so that I'm not always starting from scratch. So that's the second big thing that I would share with you. But then there's one more thing I want to share, and this is really important. You have to make sure that what you are talking about and writing content for is not something that you actually don't love. This is a huge one. I know for myself, something that really helped me to not burn out after these last 3 years was integrating things like psychology and having a little more fun with the way I'm creating content and kind of creating almost like just a little more alignment. And even this right here, I mean, answering questions that I've gotten for 10 years, this could seem boring to some people. And I'm like, if I'm doing something that's a project that I have to do anyways for these amazing backdrops that I'm creating, there's something beautiful about turning it into a process that doesn't suck. So if something sucks, make sure that you're passionate about it or find a new way to present it. If something sucks your energy, that is. Answering questions about social media marketing never sucks.
What's your best advice about doing your thing, knowing people will co-opt it or outright steal it because you know you're a leader in the industry and keep going on delivering and doing your thing anyways? People
have stolen verbatim so much of my content. It is not even funny. Actually, it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny now. It's funny. No, people have stolen so much of my content, like completely verbatim, and taken my systems and my trainings and people who knew from like my programs and then taught them as their own with a new name. Oh, I thought you were raising your arm. The biggest thing I've realized through that process is, first and foremost, leaders will always lead and iterate, and followers will always be a few steps behind. What I mean by that is when someone is iterating from your work, they don't know how to lead or iterate. If I am trying to lead an army, let's say, and everything I know about war I learned from The Patriot and Braveheart, I'm not going to be a very good leader because I learned from someone else's battle plans. So really and truly, you want to lead and innovate and recognize that nobody else will ever quite be able to lead the way you are, but don't let it stop you from showing up, sharing your heart, your vision, your thoughts, all your freebies, all that good stuff. And then something else that really helps is to stay a few steps ahead by creating new systems and new strategies, and to say, like, I don't want to just teach the same thing forever. I want to share things that are revolutionary. I want to push the limits of marketing. And for me, that's been a big
process through studying like emotions and identities, understanding more about the human brain, which I think is so fascinating.
Hi, Rachel. Where did you start looking and finding clients?
Oh, I found my first client when I was a hairstylist. She came in my chair. It was her first appointment with me ever. And from that appointment, after talking about Shark Tank, no less, I didn't even have a degree or anything. She said, I want to hire you basically to be my marketing consultant. Would you be open? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds so fun and exciting. Now, beyond that point, I found clients using LinkedIn, which is wild. I connected with people, shared value around the topics that I was going to try to basically cold pitch them on. I'm not a hater on cold pitches when they're done well, and I did mess up quite a few, but that was where I found the majority of my first clients. I also remember back then I got a lot from job boards like Upwork and not Fiverr. I didn't do that. But I also did a process where I turned job opportunities into clients. So if I saw someone was hiring for a full-time social media manager, I would say, you know, for the price of a third to a fifth of a full-time salary plus all the things that come with it, I'll do this for you until you find the right person. And that actually worked really well. So I would just apply for jobs and send them a message that basically said, hey, here's what I want to do. Do you want a fractional social media manager instead? And that actually worked pretty well. Now, these days, my process of finding clients is quite a bit different. But those are the initial strategies. So don't be afraid to approach people. And remember, you will mess up. I got roasted a few times for some really bad outbound cold messages, and I had it coming, but guess what? It taught me. But don't be scared of like rejection, because the worst someone can do is say basically you suck and make fun of you and move on with their lives.
What's one thing you do to lift yourself out of the fog on days that feel hard?
What is something I do to lift myself out of the fog on days that feel hard? Some days it's easier than others. For me, a lot of it is chemical more than situational. So everything can be feeling fantastic and suddenly, bam, I feel the chemicals hit. And I'm like, I just suddenly feel like I'm walking around in molasses. So it's interesting because the single most effective thing, I've shared a lot of things that help over the years, but the single most effective thing that has helped me more recently is a DBT technique, which is dialectical behavior therapy. Basically, which is really good for like trauma and severe mental illness, but also severe depression. What you do is you kind of identify the feeling. This technique is called do the opposite. You identify the feelings that are negative, right? Like when you get hit by that fog, it's like, I can't do anything right. I'm filled with shame. Okay, great. So you're filled with shame. And when you're filled with shame, what do? I sit on the couch and I don't do anything, or I lay in bed and I hide from the world. Okay, so now what is the opposite action of sitting on the couch? Okay, I think it would be probably going for a walk. Right, go for a walk. And before you know it, I get back from the walk, my blood is pumping, my heart is racing. Not everything's solved, not even close. Anyone who tells you, go on a walk, drink some green juice, take a bath, and your whole world will be well. It doesn't always work like that. But instead, what I do is I recognize, okay, I feel a little bit more productive now. I feel a little bit more able to take things on. And for that reason, I am going to choose to do the opposite, because once I do the opposite action, the opposite feeling shows up, and then I'm more likely to get into a positive spiral.
Rachel, if you had to start all over from scratch, what would you have done differently, even though you are successful?
Ooh, it probably would have cost a lot more. I say that because like at first I was so afraid to swear on my platform that I built a whole following not swearing. I love swear words. I think they're fantastic. I swear probably way too much in my personal life. But now that my platform is built this way, I can't just suddenly switch, or people are gonna be like, ugh, we don't like this version of her. Maybe someday I'll release like Rachel rated R. And I kind of like that. Rachel rated R. At least it's, never mind. I also like dirty jokes too, and I wish I used more of them in my marketing. I think they're hilarious.
How do I create a marketing plan that really works?
Okay, for starters, this always seems obvious and almost annoying when people say it. I don't care because it's true. And that is, you need to do in-depth research. You need to know who is the audience that we're wanting to target and what are their actual pain points. What is their struggle? What are their challenges? Get really specific. Try to make as many pages worth of pain points as you can so that it becomes easier to start thinking of what comes next. Then from there, you ask yourself, what kind of content and marketing pieces could we create that would attract them based on those pain points and ultimately make them say like, wow, this could help me. This is fantastic. And then what you're going to do is make a list of those content pieces. So this is plan. You're going to make a list of all those types of content pieces and topics and probably up to like 12 different serious pain points that your deliverables, services, offerings, products help with. And then from there, you're going to divide it out over the year. If you don't have enough for a year, repeat the whole process. Only test new angles, hooks, captions, video concepts, etc. And then the biggest thing after that, the plan is just to get you moving. Even if you've got everything planned out, you are going to change your mind. So be open to pivoting and getting creative and getting weird with things, because I will tell you, some of my weirdest moments in business have created the coolest prompts for content.
How do I talk to my target audience? Can you give examples, please?
So, okay, question for you. Have you noticed the way that I'm talking to you now? Doesn't it just feel like you're kind of sitting down with me as a friend? And this question was part of the reason why I was like, this would be kind of cool. You can talk to your target audience just like normal people. You can talk to them, maybe not like your best friend, because if you're anything like me, you get wild and crazy, right? But you can talk to them like people you would meet at a dinner party and just get to know them. So that always helps me a lot to not like overly position, CEOs in my head as these like wildly successful billionaires that somehow have all the answers to life. Oftentimes I've found that like celebrities and billionaires, when they meet someone who just treats them like a normal person, that ends up being their favorite people to be around, and they're going to want to hire people that treat them like normal people. And anyone who says otherwise, you might not want to work with that person.
How big is your email list, and how do you think about what to send your audience? How often to email, the subject of the email, and the actual email content?
My email list, I stopped keeping track of the size of our total contacts when it was around 350,000. So I don't even know what the exact number is anymore, but it's a decent sized email list. And what's fascinating about emails is some people do best with batching them. I'm a just-in-time writer for almost everything because I find that I learn so much about topics and things that we're going to talk about in the day-to-day that I don't want to have this like pre-planned full schedule and get to a place where I feel disconnected from the things that I'm actually excited about now, today. So I look for inspiration in everyday life. For example, if I watch a movie or a TV show and something really sticks out to me, I'm probably naturally going to see some parallels, and I can share like, oh, I never thought about it this way. Pick me, choose me, love me. And how I can share that that's how most people are approaching all their marketing, when truth be told, Meredith never had to do that. Okay, so the point is, I am a big believer in getting inspired from every day. Sometimes I'll share things from reading old journals. I like doing that process too. Reading books helps a lot, and I'll share from that. And I just write from my heart to them. And over the years, I feel like I've gotten pretty good at, developing a natural voice where people know it's me. And then with subject lines, I get crazy. I look for anything and everything that'll get an open without being too inappropriate. So throughout my day-to-day, if someone says like a super unhinged word, I'm like, ooh, I should use that for a subject line and see how that performs. Or if someone asks me a weird question, I'm like, ooh, I should use that for a subject line. Generally speaking, I like really short or really long, meaning like 1 word, 2 words max, or a super long run-on sentence that's super specific for subject lines. Or I like unhinged things or jokes, and I do love putting emojis in there too.
I love your bookshelf. What are the best books for building and keeping confidence while business is slow?
Ooh, and thank you, by the way. I love my bookshelf too. So when it comes to keeping your confidence, keeping momentum internally, my answer here is going to be actually really different. I'm not going to recommend any of the books that you have heard about, most likely related to this, because none of them are business books. So pretty much anything by Wayne Dyer, I've read every single one of his books. I love his books. For a while I read Deepak Chopra, and I do love his books. They're just a little bit heavy if you don't normally read lots of books with tons of like science in them. It's kind of like Joe Dispenza. I'm a huge fan of Neville Goddard and tapping into the power of imagination and momentum from that. I love Florence Scovel Shinn, and by the way, these are all really woo-woo books, and they changed my life. Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron Gikandi. That book, do not let the cover or the title fool you. If you're new to that type of book, oh my gosh, be ready to have your world rocked and confidence to stream out of you for the next forever. I also am a huge fan of Brian Scott's Reality Revolution. That one was really helpful for me. Basically, I like to read books about like the quantum and learning about parallel lives. I love that concept, and it helps me a lot, even if it is imaginary. I don't care. Like, I just love learning about how I can tap into the confidence of a different identity, even when I don't feel that way. And that's been really fantastic and helpful in my life. Well, we are just about done. You guys, thank you so much for joining me in this. You have to let me know if you like this format, because this feels really nice to just sit here and do, a couple of my favorite things at the same time. By the way, you'll see that there are some really cool freebies linked in the comments below, including a list of my complete favorite books related to business, woo, and a little bit of psychology. We put that entire list together. I think it's 103 books. And also keep in mind, I'm not just recommending books just because they're good books. I skipped the ones that weren't the most revolutionary for me. So this is a pretty concentrated book list, and it is organized by topic.